everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Vanessa. If you haven't been here before, I run a recruiting firm called Pro REA Staffing, and this video is part of a series that I'm doing on exploring careers in real estate. So I'm so excited to have Julie here today. Julie is an escrow manager. She's also a Keller Williams team leader, but we're going to focus on her escrow career today. She's a busy woman. Another day we'll have to do KW team leader because that's a whole other another thing to explore. But today we're going to talk about what it's like to work in escrow, and specifically what does an escrow manager do. So Julie, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I started, do you want to give me to give a little bio?
Yeah, please. I'd appreciate that.
So about I'm 50 years old, so around 27 years old, I jumped into escrow. I was a single mom, and escrow is actually an excellent way for single mothers or even single dads, although we don't see men in escrow very often, to make good money. And I kind of just worked really hard, worked a lot of hours, and built my career. I have ran several branches of escrow offices, whether it be for a private escrow company. I've worked for title companies, and the majority of my career in the last 14 years has been working with attorneys.
Perfect. So let's kind of go back to the basics. So what is escrow?
So escrow is actually, it's quite a few things. When a selling broker and listing broker come to an agreement with the buyer and the seller, and the contract goes mutual, then they actually send the contract to the escrow officer. This escrow officer can work for a title company, they can own their own escrow company, or they could work for an attorney under the attorney's bar license. Once that contract is tendered, then we immediately open up the file. We contact both parties, clear escrow, getting the seller's information, ordering payoffs. And then I describe it as the quarterback of a real estate transaction. We're the ones that are communicating with both brokers, the lender, the buyer, and the seller. So when it all comes down and we gather all this information, we're really the last stop or the last impression with the client. We do the signings. We also draw all of the legal documents that were required to transfer the property into the new buyer's name, and handle the recording and paying off of all liens, as well as handling HOA demands and utility bills.
Yeah, so it's a very central, you're the hub of the whole transaction. Now,
we really are.
I think it's important to point out that you're in Washington State, and that this process is different in different states. So for example, in California, escrow and title are completely separate. They're like separate entities, right? And then in some states, like on the East Coast, they use an attorney for everything. So it's different depending on where you are. But I think if you're talking about escrow, that like being the hub of the transaction is the same everywhere in the US.
It really is, although believe it or not, it does differ. In California, you can be a private escrow company. We do have private escrow companies in the state of Washington. It is becoming harder and harder. The difference is between a private escrow company, they are actually ran or overseen by the Department of Financial Institutions. If you close your escrow with a title company, they are overseen by the insurance commissioner. And then if you work for an attorney, obviously you're overseen by the bar and the actual attorney itself. California can actually do every single thing Washington does. It just seems like the private escrow companies have actually a stronger hold on the market than the title companies do. On the East Coast, it's roundtable, which is actually very shocking to me in the sense that the buyer and the seller actually sit at the same table together. They sign all the paperwork together, and then they exchange keys. So in our state, we focus on actually representing the clients and not having them in the same room. So it's really interesting, but you are correct. On the East Coast, all transactions are driven by attorneys.
Yeah. So let's go through what a typical day in the life is for an escrow manager. You walk in and what are you faced with?
Okay, so as an escrow manager, I've actually always been a working escrow manager. So I have actually closed a desk while I'm managing 9 to 13 people. So a day in the life of an escrow manager is generally my hours are from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. When I get in, I immediately start either dispersing files that have recorded to get all those wires out and get all the agents paid. Then I'm drawing docs and I'm booking signings for the clients to come in. Due to the pandemic, a lot of clients want mobile notaries to go to them. And so we're scheduling those. Sometimes the clients come in to sign, and sometimes, most of the time, we're sending a mobile notary out to them following COVID guidelines. On the management side, I'm creating flow. We are doing stand-ups every morning. We're discussing what is on every employee's desk and how we're really going to manage the day in order to meet all the clients' expectations, and also who's going to help who on what. This is an ebb and flow business, and so daily, one escrow assistant might have less on her desk than another escrow assistant. We talk about staffing issues, what they're seeing, the kinks I need to work out, possibly technology that they want to bring on, as well as covering vacations and hiring of team members. I'm in charge of doing that. So really closing and just making sure my girls are taken care of. I learned a long time ago that my client is actually my team. My client is not the real estate agent. When I am focused on my team and their needs, they are going to go above and beyond for the client and really take ownership like they own the company. So my main focus is making sure my girls are okay and that we're meeting the client's expectation.
And who does business development?
I do. So I'm very, very different. Most escrow officers are very high systems and processes, and also conformity, which we would call conformity. They like to follow the rules. Generally, they are introverts, and they really, really want to service the client and get the gold star. And the last thing they want to do is be in front of a client asking them for business. So I'm just one of those weird people that I'm really good at the numbers and balancing and the technical side of escrow, but my need is to connect. So in escrow, you don't necessarily have that need met. You do when you're signing a client, you're learning about them and you're connecting with how excited they are, either if they're selling their home and moving to a different part of their life or journey, maybe it's retirement, versus signing somebody as a first-time home buyer, which actually is my favorite. And all the girls make fun of me because they say, oh, Julie's going to do a first-time home buyer, she'll be out in 2 hours. I really am passionate about them understanding what they're doing. A lot of escrow processes are that the buyers come in to sign and they really don't know what they're signing. So I do get part of my connection there. I'm just a natural networker, and I want to work with high-level real estate agents. And by me taking that next step and being able to use my desire for connection, I'm able to reach out to those great agents and build a relationship with them. We are a team. This is not individual. Certain aspects of escrow or lending or real estate, if we all come together as a team, that transaction is so much smoother. And so with that, you have to build is what I call a deep emotional bank account. So I am always building those deep emotional bank accounts with my agents. So when they know that we're all working together, that I am doing absolutely everything humanly possible to get the transaction done.
Perfect. So I want to draw the distinction between an escrow manager and an escrow officer for people who really don't understand. So an escrow officer is the one who is talking to the client and managing the transaction. And they usually have an assistant, sometimes more than one, to handle other parts, right? So if
Yes.
you want to talk about the trajectory, so how does somebody get into the industry? Where would they likely start? And then how do they progress?
So normally they would start actually in an escrow position at the front desk. They would be answering phones. They need to have very good communication skills. They will be receiving in earnest money. They will be directing that client to whom they need to talk to within the team members based on where the process in the escrow is currently at the time. They really understand very quickly how busy, the environment is, and that you're constantly making decisions based on, information in a very quick manner. So when you start at the very first as an escrow receptionist, generally in my experience, those are some of the strongest employees that I grow within the company, because they're really building their career from the very bottom all the way to being an escrow closer and escrow officer. So they're understanding all facets of escrow process, and they're also better leaders because they've been there. They know what it's like. Some people are able to go straight into escrow assistant. That's usually when they might have a background as a loan processor, something very similar where you're putting a whole bunch of pieces together. Generally though, I started as an escrow assistant. But I'm somebody who can fake it until you make it. And so I was able to do that. But I would say definitely as a receptionist, answering the phones and getting a feel for what the agents need and the buyers and the sellers need.
Perfect. And I guess I think it's worth underscoring multiple times that this is an incredibly busy job, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the capacity that escrow officers have to handle the volume of work, it's pretty big. It's impressive. Most people don't have the capacity to handle the kind of workload you guys handle.
Yeah, it's funny. I say that the only two more stressful jobs in the industry is either, or not in the industry, but in general, is an air traffic controller or somebody who is HR for a very large company. Yeah, it's extremely busy. You're multitasking, you're shifting gears, you are answering a phone call right in the middle of you working up a file or booking a client. You definitely have to have that need to please and also have a very, very quick way about you. I can't teach sense of urgency, and I also can't teach somebody on how they're going to prioritize. I can coach them through that, but they normally either have it or they don't. I've actually attempted to train or coach somebody with sense of urgency, and I've been in escrow for 26 years, and I've never ever been able to successfully teach that specific skill. I also tease people and say that everybody in escrow, there's something wrong with us. Maybe it's this, like I said, huge emotional need to please. Very, very hard workers, and they are people that cross the finish line. I have clients who say I'm the Marshawn Lynch of escrow because I'd rather die than not get into the end zone. So you have to have that desire to want to work hard and get the deal done. We're dealing with people's lives. We're dealing with them selling a home maybe they raised their family in. We're dealing with a first-time home buyer or somebody who's lost a spouse and really doesn't want to move. So we need to keep in mind also that while we've closed 2 to 4 to 5,000 transactions in escrow, that every single person is living this in their own personal way. And we need to make sure that we are present. Human nature, you get desensitized, right? You get desensitized to, the 1003, which is the loan application, or how, you know, how much money someone makes because you see it on the docs, you know, and then you become transactional. And that's when you really lose touch with the client. Escrow is transactional. There's a lot of emotional things at play. And so if you're not able to switch gears, you're probably not going to be successful in escrow, because there's a whole other side of escrow that is not transactional in nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, let me tell you, I can go in, Friday I went in at 6, I left at 7:30. Here's the thing I love about escrow is I felt like I'd been there for an hour. So I do think we get addicted to the adrenaline as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we're not in that place of high capacity, that we actually don't enjoy it. We really get
You guys are like a glutton for
type of
punishment.
pace.
Yeah. So I think we've talked about how intense this job is and the hours, but there's a really good trade-off to all of that, which is what you mentioned earlier. Like, escrow officers can make a very good living. So can you kind of give a perspective, obviously, not what you make, but like a perspective of what an escrow assistant can make in Washington and what a top producing escrow officer can make, and like, what are we talking about?
You know, we're actually talking really big numbers, to be honest. So, and every entity, let me make this clear, between the title escrow officers versus the escrow officers that are working for an attorney versus a private escrow company, that tends to be a little bit smaller in nature. I would say at the top, and there's also recruiting incentives. So a lot of people don't know that if a title company needs a closer bad enough, they might offer them $20,000 to $30,000 signing bonus just to come over to that title company. I have heard as high as $50,000 or $60,000. And in essence, the title company is buying that book of business that the escrow officer has really built over the course of her career. Mm-hmm. And then what they do is they tie that to a amount of years that they will stay there. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know how long they're going to be able to do that, in the sense of non-competes are now illegal in the state of Washington effective January 1st of 2020. So I'm really interested to see when our first case is, right? Mm-hmm. I'm interested to see what that precedence is and what that court case or lawsuit states. An average closer that's closing somewhere between 25 and maybe 40 resale, which is where you really want to be, is on the residential resale side. I would say will make anywhere between $125,000 to $225,000 based on their book of business. Mm-hmm. Escrow officers that are sitting a desk with bonus, like I said, I would say median probably 150. Mm-hmm. And then our escrow officers are with our escrow assistants with bonuses and overtime are making probably around $102,000 a year. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at working for an escrow company, my philosophy is I always try to pay 10 to 15% higher than what the industry is paying, in order to ensure that number one, that we're a company worth working for and that we're invested in our clients along with 401ks and everything. Mm-hmm. A lower escrow assistant is probably going to enter into the industry somewhere around $60,000 with, starting out at the front desk, handling supplies, doing those types of things. But when you're opening an escrow company, you really do have to look at the salaries. That is your largest expense in an escrow company, is your escrow closers, LPOs, officers.
Right, for sure. And are people paid mostly on salary, or is it partially salary and partially bonus?
Well, so when you're working for an attorney, it's actually, you cannot, it's against the professional rules of conduct you can't fee share when you're working for an attorney. Attorney can't share fees with a non-attorney. Mm. So within Mosseth Legal, we actually pay a higher salary. And then what we like to do is we give back 15% back to our agents in November at the end of the year in a bonus. So we like to do it the second week in November because I want my girls to have money for Christmas and everything. These companies that give Christmas bonuses like a week before Christmas, it's, everybody's running around and you definitely can't get Amazon delivered within a week.
Yeah.
Title companies are different. They can pay based on file closed. So generally, the title companies have a little bit lower of a salary than I see within an attorney escrow operation and a private escrow operation. And then they're paid based on milestones they hit. So the first milestone might be if you close 40 escrows, we're going to give you a bonus of X. And then it goes up from there. So they are then bonused out at the per file basis. And generally speaking, which is interesting, is the escrow, that the team leader of that escrow team is generally the one that gets to pick how much their team makes. So there might be a set bonus of $10,000, and then the escrow officer doles that money out to their assistants based on their performance and what she's seen from the month prior.
Perfect. Okay, thanks for clarifying that. I think that's always a question people want to know. So you made a comment earlier that I think is very accurate. It's mostly a female industry. Why do you think that is?
I don't know how frank I can be. I remember my husband coming in. I was coming in on a Saturday to do a signing, and the signing, to no fault of my own, did not go well. The buyer was upset with the loan officer. The loan officer showed up on a Saturday in my office. There was arguing going on. My husband was sitting in my office hearing the whole thing, and I de-escalated it. We ended up getting the package signed and the file closed. And I went back to my office, and he's like, "I would never do what you do." So I really think it has to do with, number one, the pressure involved in the job. A lot of I have had men work for me. The pressure isn't worth it to them. And I think that it's just the way we're wired. I think that women, and they say there's no such thing as multitasking. I'm not here to say one way or the other. I'm not a scientist. I don't know really how the brain works. I've just noticed that women are able to take on multiple tasks and complete them in a rapid way versus needing to think about it, or knowing what they need to get off their desk. I just think that men won't put up with it, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than, they're like, "You're crazy. I don't know why you're saying, So that's all I can say is I just think it's a different way that we're wired.
And I don't want to undersell it because people love this job and people stay. Like, the problem now is a lot of escrow officers are getting older, right? And not enough young people are coming into the industry, and it's very top heavy with senior escrow officers. So there really is, I can speak to this in California. There's a huge demand for people who have the skill set and are hungry to do this. But the people who've been in it have been doing it for 30 years, right? People stay in this. Like, if you get into escrow, like, you're hooked. And
it gets in your blood.
Yeah.
It does get in your blood. And, it's so funny that you bring this up because I need to hire 2 people immediately. And I just turned 50 in April. And so I didn't really ever see myself as somebody aging into the industry. And so I started calling people that I knew, that I really admired, and to ask them to come work for me. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, that person is 66, or they're going to be looking to retire, and I'm building this escrow company and growing it to different counties and all of these other things. And so what's interesting about it is the new generation coming in, the older escrow officers, we call it cradle to grave. So they've learned how to close an escrow cradle to grave, whether it be receiving the contract, opening up the file, calling the buyer and the sellers, clearing title, drawing the file, the legal documents, doing everything. That animal doesn't exist really anymore unless you really, really get lucky. And we're really finding a needle in the haystack, and I am determined to do that. What the industry in general has done, which is actually really smart, I'm just going to say right now, I'm not a big title company fan. What they've done though is very, very smart. And so what they do, they've taken the job and they've broken it up into segments of what that process looks like. From an efficiency standpoint, it makes sense, or it could make sense, because you're only as strong as your weakest link. The reason they do that is because they lessen the loyalty to the LPO or escrow officer. So if that agent is talking to the assistant and then the senior assistant, they're limiting their time to build that relationship with the escrow officer. Mm-hmm. So now what they're doing is they're protecting their own market share. Where I am of the thought process is, listen, here's the thing, girls. You built your book of business. You busted your butt. You've done things that no one else would do. You've signed people on hoods of cars at 10 o'clock at night. I've gone to jails and signed people. This is your book of business, and that's how I treat my people. I want them to have something that is an asset for them. It's my job to keep them happy. It's my job to treat them well so they never want to leave. To minimize what they've done and the book of business that they've built, to me, is not a moral thing to do. But that's what they've done, and it's interesting. And I've seen that business tactic repeated in several different ways with several different really, really large, companies. And so that's how they're able to do it and maintain that client base through a title rep or a sales rep within the private escrow company. They're bridging that gap to make that relationship more important than the relationship between the agent and the escrow officer or escrow closer. So, it's a relationship business. And I tell my girls, I pick up the phone. I pick up the phone when we have earnest money. I built my entire business by picking up the phone.
Yes.
Because everybody wants to hide.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody wants to hide behind email and text. And the thing of it is that they can't hear your tone. They can't hear your intent. And so that's literally, I worked really hard, and I came in on the weekends, and I came in early in the morning and late at night. With that being said, that was just the cherry on top. Picking up the phone is the number way to build a business across all genres.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be willing to pick up the phone and have the conversation.
Yeah.
This was so great. I am so sure. Hopefully we've enticed some people to want to reach out to you because they're excited to join your company. That would be amazing. I'll include your company's, your information or your LinkedIn profile.
I would love that. I would love that.
For sure. So thank you so much. And you guys, thank you for watching. We have more videos like this on other careers in real estate. So check out this playlist, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video. I'll see you on the next one.